You're listening to Dramas Over Flowers with Saya, Anissa, and Paroma. Hello, I'm Saya.
I'm Paroma.
And this is a wild, slightly spoiled yak on Our Blooming Youth, which Paroma and I have watched. And apparently there's some demand for this wrap-up episode, so here we are.
It's going to be more than slightly spoilery because we are going to be talking about the ending. So if you have not
extremely spoiled.
watched Our Blooming Youth, yeah, this is your cue to run away. Or, if you don't mind spoilers or we're not going to finish watching the drama, then keep listening because we are always entertaining to listen to.
Yes, we are. Very entertaining.
Okay, Saya, so 20 episodes. We watched this drama grow from like a mystery drama to something that was more about like the crown prince, figuring out his place in the palace, figuring out who his people were, learning to trust and make friends, while our heroine like comes into her own in terms of like the confidence she has in herself. And she was always a pretty confident girl. But also, the trust she earns from the prince and the people around him. And then, of course, finally, the ending, which we're going to talk about. So how was your journey through the drama as you were watching?
You just went really deep. Before we hit record, you said, we're just going to talk about the audience discussion and reaction. I was like, okay, let me put down my my deep mental preparations, which were like 10 minutes before we recorded. Okay, well, that was unexpected. Now, let me think about this. I think in our intro, the first episode where we talked about this, I was talking about how, this is exactly my drama. Every trope was it's just my kind of drama. Just my type. And it was. But I think as we got towards the end and sort of the mystery unraveled, the thing is, until I went off and read some people's reaction to it, I was perfectly satisfied. And then I read other people's dissatisfaction and it kind of ruined it for me because, sometimes when you love something, you're quite willing to just sort of gloss over its weaknesses and be like, everything else was good anyway. But it kind of, ruined it a little bit for me. And then, I was exposed to weaknesses that I didn't want to see because of what I loved about it. And that made me really sad. But the problem is I clicked out after I'd already seen them. So, okay, let's talk about the mystery. The mystery was set up really, really well. It had this very haunting atmosphere. You weren't quite sure whether there was something sort of metaphysical going on or whether it was all sort of, human trickery. And they kept up the tension of that really well. It was a long time before you could be sure which way the mystery lay. And I think they maintained that all the way to the end. But then when they revealed, I still feel a little bit reluctant to say who was at the center of it all. So when they revealed who was at the center of it all, it could have worked better than it did because it kind of unwound after that. Once they'd done the reveal, instead of sort of slowly unspooling that tension, it just went like a balloon losing its air slowly going, it's kind of like that. So that was a bit disappointing.
I agree.
So now I've gone away from the drama thinking that I enjoyed it less than I did, and I'm kind of unhappy about that, but I also can't undo it.
That is a tragedy. There's a tragedy of watching, currently airing dramas because you do look up other people's thoughts on dramas because you want to find out if there are insights you've missed. And sometimes their thoughts are wildly different from your own.
The thing is, all along, it was so satisfying that I didn't need to go see what's everyone else saying because I was just really into it. And also it was Ramadan. I didn't have time to do anything else. And then by the time I sat down to finish it, I had 4 or 6 episodes stacked up and it was just let's get through this. Sorry, go on.
No, I get that. But sometimes it's not so much that you're looking for like different opinions or even, as I said, insightful. It's just that you want to hear the discussion. You're loving it so much. You want to hear it talked about. It gives us joy.
You want to hear the
And,
good parts of it talked about.
Exactly.
Like all of the stuff that it did so well. You want to be like, is anyone else seeing what I'm seeing? Like there was,
and feeling what I'm feeling.
one of the most dissatisfying parts of some of the discussion that I read was just like the kind of, there was so much, I don't know how to phrase this in a way that isn't really rude. Like there was so much thirst. Like people were like desperate to see like hot passion. And I was like,
yeah.
I thought that the yearning was so beautifully done. The longing in that relationship. And it was like, fundamentally it's a relationship that couldn't be. That was the point. All that said, I was also a little annoyed by how that turned out in the end. Like, yes, I like a happy ending. And I was like, okay, fine, they're together. I'm happy. But like, there was definitely a point where I was like, I don't even want there to be a romance between Jae-yi and the prince, because it was so perfect exactly as it was. And like, I loved what she said about not wanting to choose marriage. Like, if she had the freedom, she'd rather just be a eunuch for the rest of her life, because that was her getting to live out a more independent life, just having choices. And
do you want to know the ending that I had envisioned?
Oh, tell me.
Like, this was around episode 13 and 14, and I had this, it popped up in my head, and I loved it so much, but I knew it wasn't going to happen. Is that, everything gets resolved as it was. Jae-yi goes on, she goes back to her family's property, she's living there, a free woman, vindicated. And then, after some time, maybe a few months, she receives a missive from the crown prince, who becomes the king. And he's like, here is a new mystery, and I need your help to solve it.
Oh.
And that's it.
Like that's her job.
She sets off like...
That would be so
and then we see like the final shot would be the two of them together, her in her male, garb, and they're traveling somewhere trying to figure out a mystery together. That's what I wanted.
I can see it in my head. See, this is the thing. Like the driving conflict of their relationship was that they couldn't be together, but then it's like it was solved by him becoming the king. And you're just like, that's not really a solution. Or if it's a solution, then it wasn't really a problem. Like,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's not. I don't want to do this as a downer episode because despite all of that, there was all this good stuff.
There was so much good stuff. I think for me, the best thing was, and I know in the first episode, like in our first impressions episode, I was complaining about Hyung-shik not being as intense as I take that back. He was, he was perfect for this. He had this character's tone figured out perfectly. We were the ones who needed to catch up. I loved it. Like, he was intense when he needed to be. He was calm and just like withdrawn or careful when he needed to be. But also he was like, I think my favorite parts of the show was when he was in the wrong because of his disbelief, his skepticism, the lies he was struggling with, and all of that making him make bad judgment calls. So like when he throws Jae-yi out, for instance.
That made me mad.
That made me so mad. And then later on, he's asking the warrior boy, I forget what his name is.
Sung-un.
Especially with the whole...
Oh, no, the boy.
The boy.
I can't remember his name. Let's look it up quickly. Hold on.
The twin.
Yeah. Taegang.
Taeyoung. And then he's like, well, where is she? Call her. And he's like, but she's left the palace. And he's like, what? You let her leave the palace? No, but like you told the guy to throw her out. What? How was he supposed to interpret that?
And he did it quite gleefully too.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, yeah. No, I quite enjoyed that. I honestly... okay, we'll come back to the twin.
You reminded me, of another thing I didn't enjoy.
I did not like that. But Jae, like the decision he makes about Jae, the distance he puts between himself and the sergeant, because he's afraid of being backstabbed and hurting his friends somehow.
Yeah.
All of those things where he is in the
Their
wrong.
resolution of that was so good.
Oh, those were so good.
Oh, so good.
So good.
Like someone telling him, I never stopped being your friend. Oh, I
Yeah.
loved that he chose him. Like he chose the friendship.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. Absolutely. Everything that happened after that point did feel a little bit like fillers, because honestly, by episode 12, I pretty much knew what the game was. Because as you said, as soon as they revealed who was at the center of certain plots, you knew who was doing everything. Even though in some of it didn't make a lot of sense, like why would Jae-yi's parents be killed?
That
didn't
bothered me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just seemed like it was almost like an oopsie. It wouldn't seem very thought out.
But it's not a drama I regret watching. Like I feel like
No, absolutely not.
the
I'm going to
experience.
remember it. Like
Go on.
it was thoughtful. It was thoughtful, and like some of the themes that they were exploring were quite deep. The eventual execution, like this happened with the Red Sleeve too. There was a subplot with the rebellion of the the handmaidens.
I haven't watched it yet, so don't spoil
called?
me. Court ladies.
I mean, it's court ladies, correct. I'm sorry, that is a spoiler, I suppose. But let's just say it was a minor plot.
Oh, forget it.
And great. The point I'm trying to make it is sometimes this thing that starts this rebellion that has every justification to exist, because you show the revenge being this long game that ends up hurting a lot of innocent people. You take the justification away from that rebellion when you're showing that in the
Yeah.
story. And this reminds me of what they do in the Marvel movies constantly, with their villains who are actually fighting the good fight, except that they seem perfectly fine with, killing a lot of good people, as casualties, and they are just unremorseful. And because of that, the heroes are, of course, on the side of the status quo, being like, well, you had a good cause, but you chose the bad way, therefore you are bad and I'm good. I'm good. I'm the one who's protecting the way as it is right now. I'm good. But you who, wanted to change things and make things better, but you chose the wrong way, you are evil. So, yeah, I think dramas use that too sometimes, especially in these slightly vague, grand revenge plots.
It's frustrating when you can feel how simplistic it is, because you can see the drama has complexity and you can see that they understand that there's nuance here, but they build up that nuance, but they pay it off without the same level of build up. Like the build up is complex, the payoff is simplistic, and you're like, that is disappointing, because if the drama had been simplistic from the beginning, then you don't have the expectation of it paying it off.
Oh, that would have been fine.
That same nuanced and rich way. Yeah, exactly. But when they, the drama is demonstrating to you that it understands certain things, but then it doesn't go on to resolve it as it deserves to be resolved, that's when you're just you feel a little bit okay, that didn't go where I thought it was going. Although I think talking about it and making it sound worse than it was, but I think with Our Blooming Youth specifically, it had so much strength in its characters and character building that it masked a lot of the plot shortcomings, but it couldn't mask it all the way to the end. Yeah. So it masked it all the way up to...
Because so much time was spent on unraveling the mystery, right? But if the mystery itself didn't have, if the layers were actually not that many, so as soon as you started peeling the first few, you're like, well, I can see right through the deep end. I can clearly see what's at the bottom. So... then it's dissatisfying somewhat.
But it's also even if you reveal a central sort of villainous figure in an obvious way, you can still make it work by making their motivations complex. And I felt like not only did they sort of overcomplicate the positioning of that villain and how they got to be where they were, that was just it was contrived, which is a weird word to use, I guess, because an entire story is literally contrived. But it was like you decided this was the person, then you retconned like the story to make it fit the conclusion that you had picked out without thinking it through before.
Should we talk about who the main villain is, since you're already spoiling the ending? Because in that case, I want to talk about...
Let's do it.
Okay. Are you mentally braced?
I guess.
So it was the queen.
The queen who I remember most memorably. Remember most memorably? Is that even a good sentence? No, it's not. Who was most memorable to me in Princess's Man, which is a drama I can no longer watch. But the person who played it is Hong Soo-hyun. We know she's capable of pulling off very rich, very complicated and layered characters just from that role alone. Although I don't think she's done anything that complex recently. And, you know, Princess's Man was back in 2011, so that was a long time ago. Yes, the queen.
It was a while back, true. The queen. And so when we say that they overcomplicated her motivations, like, think of the kind of backstory they gave her. For instance, she's not just the wife of the villager who was just living in that village. He wasn't the ringleader or anything like that. He was just... So this is the maligned, rebel village where everybody is now called a traitor, but that's just, that they were framed. So she used to be the wife of a blacksmith. And that blacksmith was later framed as the ringleader. But later on, when you find out her backstory, he was not the ringleader. He was a very reluctant person involved in just saving some of the villagers who had unfairly been...
He was just caught in the crossfire, basically.
Yeah, he was just caught in the crossfire. But he was her husband. But more importantly, before she married him, she used to be a courtesan.
A giseng.
Giseng. So a courtesan. And he paid the fee to free her so they could be married. Like, this woman has layers on layers in terms of the backstory they've given her. And then she goes back to being a giseng with the motivation to... She wants the long revenge, but like it's...
Well, I think she just wanted to kill the guy... what's his name?
Yeah. Initially, that's what she wanted.
The evil minister.
The minister. Yeah. The main evil minister.
I just keep thinking of him as Min Jung-kook. You know, his character.
Yeah, of course, because that's his iconic, the most iconic character. Yeah. Poor guy. We were talking about it in one of our, it's been a couple of years since we did that episode. We were talking about how he's kind of like stereotyped as a murderer at this point. Like, it's very hard to see him as a perfectly normal person, a non-murderer person, after I Hear Your Voice. And he spoke about it, like how, people saw him on television as that character. And then when they saw them on the streets, it's like people spoke about how they can't trust him anymore, like if they met him normally. And that's just, wow. But yeah, so the trauma is still there. We still remember him. Like, we saw his face in this drama. The first moment we saw him, we knew he was the villain. He could be nothing else.
I did give him the benefit of the doubt, though, because remember in Idol the Coup, he wasn't a bad guy in that.
Yeah,
so
true. He wasn't. But literally nobody but the three of us watched Idol the Coup.
But I saw him most recently in that. So hasn't everyone watched it? Was it not a drama that
No, you'd be surprised
watched?
at how few people have watched it.
Oh, well, it's very good.
Listeners, if you have watched Idol the Coup, please let us know, because I am under the strong conviction that nobody's watched Idol the Coup. Anytime I reference anything from that drama, no one gets it. So I'm just walking about with the presumption that no one's watched it.
Well, I must say, after being very immersed in BTS land, it was very interesting to watch a drama that is set in the music industry. Because you're like, oh, these things are real.
But romance is not the primary plot. Yeah, it was.
Okay, but we digress. Let's come back.
So the queen. So she manages to marry the king by basically... So this minister passes her off as his niece, and she marries the king and gives birth to the grand prince, who is the cute boy, the younger son of the king who comes up, like he's...
Of the prince.
Oh, I really like the boy. He's very young.
I was going to say, is it bad if I say I really didn't like him? He just annoyed me. I think I've got to the age where I'm like,
why?
Kids. Because I'm mean-spirited.
Yeah, that. But I also thought, like, for his age...
Yeah.
I have seen far too many too mature kids in drama land. So a kid acting like an actual kid who's scared by witches and stuff like that, that just made sense to me. So I liked it.
I really liked the princess.
Yeah, so did I.
She was a great character.
I also liked the ending, more or less. I mean, But honestly, aside from the main couple's ending, which is happy, you guys, we're not saying it's sad ending, but just aside from the main couple's ending, I was actually okay with everybody else's ending. The queen's ending was, I mean, on the one hand, it made sense, but on the other hand, there is something about her punishing herself, like taking that away.
Yeah. Like, it's not a redemption. Like, you decided by yourself. I just found it... I just thought it was a really strange choice to make. I would have... And I'm not advocating for this, but I would have understood if she just took her own life. But instead, it's like the son that you've tried all of this time to defend and protect, rather than sort of going to the end with that, you sort of let yourself off the hook by literally not even having to dwell in your own consciousness. I mean, if it was a real person, I would have much more compassion, but as a story choice...
Yeah, actually, you put it really well. This is why I was so unsatisfied.
As a story choice, I didn't understand why that was what she chose to do.
Why was it what the writers chose to make her do? Like, how was this? Because Jae-yi says at the end that she chooses to forgive the woman because she has received the punishment she deserves. But, like, has she? Like, the amount of devastation she chose to cause to people who have done her or her people no wrong. And she's... No, you're right. I am unhappy about it. I was trying to figure out...
Like, if you were going to go after someone, you knew who was responsible for what happened to your husband. Why'd you go after the prince? But then I guess if the goal was, like, to make her own son be the king. But, like, I don't know. Like, why do you even need that?
It seems like a very convoluted way to get justice for your people. Like, just make...
That's exactly it. Like,
was that even your goal?
That's the word. Like, everything was... It was too twisty. Like, the convolutions of it was... That's when you were kind of, like... But you didn't need to do it that way. Like, there were more direct and rewarding paths to revenge than your twisty-turny, many...
She was the queen. She could have...
She had power.
Like, helped all of these people, change their name, given them money. She could have integrated them into... She didn't want that. She wanted everybody to hold on to their grief, wait until she figured out her great revenge, which was taking decades, and... all of them were living in poverty and being forced to go and assassinate people at her whim.
Assassinate random people.
Honestly, and now the more I think about it, the angrier I'm getting about this.
Okay, do you know what? I feel like we need to move away from the negative discussion of this.
We do. But basically...
Let's say the ending was a bit botched.
The ending... of the mystery. So I think for both Sai and me, after the episode 12-ish, when they started revealing whose hand it was at the back of all of it, I think at that point the mystery started bogging the story down a little bit for me, because it was, as Sai puts it, really shallow and not satisfying. And it didn't end in a satisfying way. So, but let's put that aside. That is what we were not happy with. But the stuff that we were happy with, I was honestly really happy with, like, the Crown Prince and Jae-yi's relationship was something that made me really happy throughout. I was like, I had no issues with them being like there, like pretty much be besties, but also just trust each other and trust each other's intelligence. And when one of them got in... Go on.
No, carry on. I was just agreeing strongly. Oh, like the intelligence, respecting each other's intelligence part.
Yeah. like when one of them got in really bad trouble, like they honestly trusted the other person to figure out a way to help them out. I mean, there is respect and trust
And
a
reliance.
level of and reliance. And it's not that the crown prince completely forgets that Jae is a woman. And I'm not saying romantically. I'm saying in terms of he occasionally remembers that she shouldn't be just randomly wandering around doing investigations. He remembers that. So it's not like he's completely put it out of his head. But it doesn't matter after the first, like their initial weeks together, when trust was being established, it just stopped mattering because she had proven herself capable over and over again. And the prince had proved himself to be somebody who deserved her trust, that he will solve things.
That said,
yeah, that's
laughing
it.
because I'm about to say, that's why I was so annoyed when he chucked her out. Because it's like, you just had this whole trust building exercise and you arrived at this place where you're like, I'm going to trust her no matter what. And then like at the first shaking, you were like, well, out you go then. I can't trust you. You've been lying to me all along. Like you made a choice to trust her first, to trust your friends first.
Yeah.
And then it just like, at the first challenge, it just went like, well, goodbye then. That made me mad. But I did appreciate how that it was a really important part of his arc that he had to realize he couldn't do anything alone. Because, you know, there was, like, again, one of the things that the show did really well was show how the power plays worked and, like, how he had to navigate the politics of the court, and not just him, but the sort of the interplay of each person as they interacted with the machinery of the court to maintain their position or maintain their power or exercise their power, for example, in the case of the king. And like, I thought the character of the king was done really interestingly. Like, it was a very like the balancing act of ruling for the benefit of the people and the political decisions that he had to make to hold on to his power. Like, it showed you how careful that what do you call it, there was a word in my mind and I've forgotten it. the trade-off between those two aspects of rule. Like, you cannot simply rule, you also have to sort of placate the other people in power in order to enact things that would benefit the people, right? And that's not to say like I am at all in favor of this kind of rule, but like in that situation, it's interesting to see how this works. And like, I thought one of the things that they had shown really well in the character of the king was that he was shrewd, and like that was the defining quality of a careful king. Like, he had to make these careful decisions, balancing the needs of the powerful against the needs of the weak. Like, he's, you know, neither kindly nor cruel. He was neither crafty nor cunning. He had to be measured rather than calculating. So all of those aspects, and like they're very subtle differences sometimes, that was done really well up to a certain point. And then I was like, why are you doing this to the king? Like, the character that you've made him, you then sort of betrayed the character that you built.
Yeah.
I got really annoyed with that too. But I glossed over it all when I was watching. Interesting. And now I'm unhappy that I made myself unhappy.
No, but because it was Hyung-shik, and like the performance had you. Yeah.
So, you know, the time where he threw, there was that period where he confined the prince to his court, like basically house arrested him. In that point I was like, I don't understand why you've done this. And I kind of understood later, like, he put him into the situation expecting him to get out of it using his own means, but also it was, like, rude.
Yeah, but my God.
Hyung-shik, oh my God, he delivered. That scene where he's crying, like, where he's, like, trying to figure out, why would my father do this to me? I was like, this Park Hyung-shik, this Hyung-shik, that's the one that we are just so here for.
There was a very similar dynamic between Park Hyun-bin and her king father in The King's Affection. the crown prince who was Park Hyun-bin. The king had a strained relationship with his daughter slash son, and it never really explained what was going on in his head. The audience didn't know it, and his daughter didn't know it, and it created this extremely toxic environment where the crown prince slash princess, it's still so hard to discuss that show, they just felt so alone because the king was just being a sphinx. And I felt the same way about the king and the crown prince here. The king, to an extent, I understood what he was doing. He was protecting his son. But also I kept thinking, you have not taken your son into your confidence, and you keep expecting your son to pass these tests whose rules he's not been told. He's not been told that these tests are important to his survival. Like he has to figure everything out. It's a great way to almost ensure that your son fails. So who are you protecting? What are you doing? I don't approve of parenting like this.
You see, that's the thing, isn't it? If they were just father and son, it wouldn't have to be like this. But they're king and heir. And that's like the inherent tension of the relationship is this, right? Is that even between them, they can't have a natural father-son relationship because of that. And in some ways, they are almost set up as rivals. And they can be. Like, if it were two different people where maybe, the son wants to use up his father's power, this is a thing that can happen. And, we just happen to be in the story where, Hyung-shik does not want to be the king. But also he wasn't born a crown prince. He wasn't born the heir. He suddenly became one a couple of years ago because his brother was assassinated. So you have all of that. So all of the work that would have been done in raising a crown prince was done with his older brother. And now he's meant to pick up all of this, instantly. And that, of course, is his challenge. But I also really did like that we got a slightly different royal dynamic for a change where you didn't have the siblings at each other's throats. You didn't have this, the kids trying to seize power from an ailing father or whatever. You could see the king genuinely loved all of his children, even though, he took odd turns when it came to Ihwan, the prince. But he truly did love them. So even though he did twisted things, it still came from a place of love, and you could see that love and it was demonstrated. And then you also had the siblings where they didn't have any rivalry between them in that respect. They just sincerely cared for each other. And then you had, the queen, who, again, they sincerely loved her. She wasn't like an evil stepmother, except she was, which is disappointing. That setup was so nice, and you could have taken that in a different direction.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to keep being disappointed. It's because we keep talking about the end whenever we talk about something, and it always brings you back to the what did you do to them. The other thing I wanted to talk about also is the relationship triangle, not a love triangle, but the relationship triangle between Han Song-on, the sergeant, the prince, and Jae-yi, which was, once you could take the romance out of the relationship, it was such an interesting but also really heartwarming relationship, because what you're seeing is these are a group of friends who are besieged by the machinations of those in power. There's just so much to mine in that relationship. And then you have your four musketeers, with Myung-jin and Lee Tae-sun. The
so good.
Such oddball, delightful, hilarious, smart, and just they were just so good. Whenever those four were together, the prince, Jae, Myung-jin, and Karam, the Pyo-ye-jin's character. They was just so nicely done.
Yeah, it was. And I really loved our secondary couple. And honestly, with them, I was quite happy with how the whole story ended. I was especially glad that our funny but very perceptive young nobleman he knew. Like, he had figured it out. And I kind of wish that had come a little early on, because I wanted him to be in the know, like, sufficiently early on that he could have been fully in on the shenanigans. But I was at least happy that, nobody had to explain it to him, because he had been built up as a character who saw so much more than people expected him to see, that it would have been disappointing if he didn't know. So that was actually lovely.
I enjoyed him pretending not to know and then like accidentally spilling the beans. It's like, oops.
Yeah.
And I liked how he was so goofy in a way that brought comic relief that was lighthearted but not lightweight, but also that it didn't contradict his character. Like that, it was all him. Like you can see, you can fit them together. They're not like at conflict with each other. This, very smart, very thoughtful. He had to be, right? He had to be a little weird to be able to make the connections he was making, because that was also what he was doing. He was like doing, forensics before there was forensics. So, I just really enjoyed that. I do wish that he had figured out who Jae-yi was a little sooner, even if he kept that to himself. Because, like, she was his hero. And I just really enjoyed that. Yeah.
I enjoyed that too, but I wish they had more interactions as hero and fan. Like, she had solved cases and he was convinced it was her and not this brother of hers. That takes such a level of like devoted fanship.
Yeah.
And, not to give them like a series of scenes where they're just like, where she is just saying something and he's like ready with like wrapped. And that was just, I think, missed opportunity. It was such a great build up, but like that I would have loved that. Also with Myung-jin, like I said, I liked the ending. The fact that the parents were like, this is an issue
it
we
seemed
can't have.
Unlikely because she was an ex-slave.
Unlikely, yes.
But I wanted them to have the happy ending. Yeah.
I wanted that too. But also, I believed in it because he is so unusual. Like, his parents by that point seem to have figured out that he is not going to be the conventional son they wanted. He is always going to be weird. And also, he's going to keep getting rejected by the nice girls they try to pair him up with. And he seems happy in this really weird setup with this girl. So, this was like a very progressive decision, but every time I use progressive these days, I try to think deeply on that word, because a lot of progressive things are not that great compared to how they were before, weirdly. So how should I, it was a pretty liberated way of thinking, like choosing to put your son's happiness before your the comments that you would be hearing in your society, which of course they would have been.
I mean, they've already been hearing it. He carries a monkey.
They've already been hearing it, exactly. So at this point,
bones on his
this was
waist.
Oh, I love that. I loved his characters so much.
Although that does remind me how the show, I mean, I guess we've already touched on it, but let's talk about two other women that it fridged, which was, his suitor and the crown princess. Was she going to be the crown princess, or she had already become the crown princess?
I was not very clear on that.
Yeah, I mean, he was like, the prince was so unbothered by being married, where you look back on, you think, oh yeah, of course she was going to die. How could he be like irrevocably married away when she's clearly not endgame?
Yeah. Which, you're right, that is actually, honestly, that aspect of the show was just so, I wasn't super invested in it, so I just wanted it to pass.
Yeah, I guess that was it. I think talking about its weaknesses has sort of amplified how I felt about them. But like in the actual experience of watching it, like my disquiet or my general dissatisfaction was very minimal as I was watching it. It's only now that we're talking about it that I'm like, and this and that. But yeah,
I think the reason we could just watch, it's 20 episodes. I give up on 16 episode dramas all the time before
and it's pre-produced. It's fully pre-produced. So yeah.
But I could still watch 20 episodes of it because of the sheer presence, charisma of the
Chemistry.
leads. The
Yeah.
casting was really strong. Yeah. Like you cared about these characters.
Yeah.
And once you care about these characters, you can take the story through all sorts of stuff. And you still just want to know, okay, I want to know what ends up happening to these characters. Does the crown prince stay the crown prince? Does he ever figure out if he's actually cursed? Or who sent the letter? How were these weird things happening? Who killed Jae-yi's parents? Why was she framed like this? It just, yeah.
Yeah.
Though there is this one comment on Reddit that I read. I can't find it anymore, but I found it hilarious and I wanted to bring it up. So this is one of those episodal discussion threads that you find under the subreddit K-drama. And so someone brought up what the actual fish is.
Oh.
You know, the madness
Yeah.
fish that they have in the plot. And
Oh,
they're
is
like,
it a real fish?
this is what the actual, it's a real fish.
Oh.
And also, no, but like, this is the real fish. However, A, the fish they kept showing is a male.
Oh.
And B, it has no such properties. Like, what?
So the eggs don't
So
make
somebody
you go
else
mad.
was like, no, they don't. But like, no, so what I loved was this next comment where somebody was like, this fish has been framed more than Jae-yi in the drama.
But is it like a fish that's lived forever or something? Like, does it really live that long?
No, it's just a normal
Oh,
fish.
it's just a normal fish. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just a normal fish.
Oh, that's quite funny. Oh, let's talk about another normal
yeah.
fish. Taegang.
Ah,
You know, I love Taegang as a character.
so did I.
I didn't need his twin. He didn't need a twin.
I didn't need a swim. Also, in the last I think it was episode 19 or 20 where they all went to the village, and the twins were facing each other like full lights, and we were saying, and like, how do you distinguish between the between the two twins? One has a constant frown and a pout, and the other one is like constantly like gullible and sweet. Yeah, they just it was so cute. And also, we really didn't need this.
Yeah.
Need the twin.
But like the thing with like Taegang was a really enjoyable foil to Jae-yi as well. He's just so petty.
Yeah, especially the initial
Yeah.
episode. So good.
Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed those interactions. It is, yeah, you know, it's magic. The drama did have a lot of magic, and it was in the relationships between the characters. It was in how those characters were drawn. It was in their interactions. I also thought a lot of the dialogue was really well written, and I think the way that Jae as a character, you know, people often complain in like this kind of sageuk, but also in the gender bending type that the female characters are often kind of written anachronistically, like to match the values of the present day instead of the
Yeah.
values of that time. I think the way that Jae was written was actually balanced very well between
Really
yeah,
well.
like she addressed the difficulties of being a woman in that period without it being, you know, a transplant from the 21st century. It was just really well done.
Agreed.
Yeah, she was such a good character.
I think some of my favorite moments with Jay was when she was talking about how she approached marriage to the sergeant when that had
Yeah.
first been announced. Because in the initial episodes, you thought, oh, she was super delighted with it
Yeah.
and like she was really looking forward to it. And that's all we got to see of the thing. Her being very excited about the wedding dress and the shoes she received and like being thrilled that he's so handsome.
And like romanticizing it.
Exactly. And then when later on she talks about how she knew she had no choice. Like if she was ever given the choice, she would have just preferred not to marry. But since that was not to be her choice, she had to be happy in the choice she had.
Oh, it wasn't even that. It was actually a little even better than that. She was like, the choice I had was whether I was happy or unhappy. So like, why would you
Yeah.
choose to be unhappy? Like, you know, the fact
Correct.
that those are your choices. You can't change the situation. You can only change how you feel about it. It was just so well
Exactly.
done. And then the moment she's given a choice, like between marriage and non-marriage, like just to have the choice to say no, you know, that's, I think it was interesting even as a viewer because you're assuming that, you know, given the chance, she's going to go back to her fiance or later as it develops that she should definitely want to be with the prince. But to be presented with a woman who's like, you know what, I actually kind of am cool to not choose anyone. And that was liberating for her. And it was an interesting sort of not wake up call, but just like a forward flick for me. It's like, oh yeah, why did you assume that she had to choose one man or the other, or that that's what she would want to choose and that's a natural choice? Because like it's not, you know, you have more choices than man A or man B.
And that would have threaded so beautifully with one of their first promises between the Crown Prince and Jae-yi. The Crown Prince saying that I give you permission. It's like that interaction they had when she was in that shed or something, and he came to confront her, and he was basically
it was a library, not a shed.
I love that. I mean, whatever it was, she was tied up like that.
No.
That
do you know what? You might have been right. It might have been a shed. Pardon me. It could have been the shed, where she was, tied up.
She ran to the door, right, like to stop him from leaving because he was basically acting like, you know, she was going to be thrown out, and she gave this little monologue, this tiny rant about just not having choices, and then the prince was like, "Well, I'm the crown prince, I give you choices," and that tied so neatly with her having a choice to say no to marriage, like. I just thought that thematically that was such a great choice, and which is why I was looking forward to the end being, you know, the ending that I told you guys in my head. It would have been her choosing to live life her own way, and hey, maybe eventually they get married. I don't know, but I would have loved to have that hint of their initial camaraderie, the thing that brought them together, the ability to just understand each other, but also to do things together. Because honestly, in a Saguk situation, a girl with no family, she's just not going to be super politically powerful, so she's not going to be his equal inside the palace. Whereas somebody who's solving a case with him, her intelligence being her worth, it's, you know what I mean? Like that's a partnership that feels more equal, even though it's not socially equal, but like just... Yeah.
I have to say, now that you point that out, that was something that kept coming to my mind, is that their relationship could never be fully equal while he was, you know, a prince or a king. And it's one of those things that's always inherent to this kind of relationship in whatever medium we, like, you know, take the story, whether it's in a book or whether it's in a show. But it's a problem. Like, how can you have a true equal relationship with someone who has that much power over you? Like, he can just tell you to do something and you're bound to do it because that's the relationship between, you know...
Myung-jin.
Exactly. And like, I don't know,
used it any number of times.
I mean, so there were times where it was just like funny, but then when it's serious, it's real. Yeah. Although the other thing I did really, really like that what the kind of role that Jae played for him is like she never lets him off the hook when he's like just being a bit of a Richard. I don't know if anyone else knows what that means. Let's just assume you do.
I think I do. Moving on.
She doesn't let him off the hook when he is just being a jerk, or when he's just being like he's just plain wrong. She doesn't stop at calling him out. She actually teaches him, and like not in a patronizing way, but it's like it's a schooling that he deserves and he needs. Like, she is, after all, his Sissinim's daughter. That is something that can feel very natural in that relationship because of who her father was to him and who her father was to her. And, you know, she doesn't pander to him. She doesn't kowtow. She tells him what he needs to hear without sparing him. And, like, she doesn't spare his feelings or his ego. So it's I find that equalizing. Even though it's not equal in terms of real-world power, it is equalizing in a kind of person-to-person interaction. Like, I may not have the power that you have in this relationship, but I'm going to tell you when you're just being a plain old, you know...
Yeah.
I
like that too. But also she was younger than him. So it would I like Jae so much just as she was. Like you said, she's not anachronistic. Her thoughts and her behavior and her choices, they were all very brave because she was a woman of that time. If she had been a transposed character, yeah, go on.
But she also, I just realized this, because she was the daughter of a teacher, a scholar, that allowed her to have these ideas that would have challenged the norms of her society, right? Because scholarship is where those intellectually because scholarship is the space where you have new ideas that would that would be all about questioning whether the norms of your society are really right. So of course she would be a bit of a revolutionary, because that's what a scholar is meant to be, at least.
Can I just edit what you said? It's not that scholarship is where you have new ideas. It's where new ideas are allowed to, in a theoretical box, like develop. Like you get to discuss them in the safety of like scholarship.
Exactly.
But and it was very evident whenever we had that flashbacks of her and her father. And her father was always surprised by her ideas, but then he would always ask, at least we saw a couple of instances where he asked her what she thought about her being like having certain thoughts in, the context of the reality of where she is.
Oh, when he told her that you are the most suited person to be this, wait, it wasn't to be the queen. Wait, who said that to her?
No. She was.
Did someone say that to her? Why am I
No,
imagining
not the
that?
queen. No. I no, because he said something very similar to her. But let me recall what it was. Not the queen. Something else. What was it? Because I think her brother was going to be sent to the prince, and he wanted Jae-yi to be the one who was sent, because he thought Jae-yi would be the one to help the prince the most. But she couldn't go because she's a woman. I can't recall the exact words, but this was basically the thrust of what he was saying.
Yeah. But to just add to what you were saying about scholarship being a safe space for ideas, safe also because you can discuss truly revolutionary things without the fear of like being seditious. In any other space, that's reason to get thrown.
I know, the thoughts are enough to get to jail.
Yes.
I mean, not that universities aren't like
also true
pretty good right now. Any thought you have even in scholarly spaces these days is
but
not that
theoretically.
However, as long as you can call it a theory, exactly. As long as you can discuss things in the safe space of theory, you can talk about a lot of things. So, which is why she didn't feel anachronistic, as you said. She felt like of the time, whose father allowed her to explore ideas she would otherwise have been sternly steered away from if she was born in any other household. So, like, I think Jay's, and also the fact that Jae wasn't this amazing martial artist or anything like that. It's just like she had taught herself skills, but also she was given a space where she could grow up the way she grew up. It was a privilege. And I liked that she was formed the way she was. So, yeah, overall, see, that's the thing. You like these characters because these characters made sense.
And also,
that's why we watched 20 episodes.
And also, speaking of privilege, one of the things that her character regularly and frequently did was acknowledge all of the privilege that she had. And again, it became one of the ways that she could call the prince out. As in, the reason that you have this power is because of the privilege you were born with. But like, what real, true right do you have to it? You have to earn it. See, this is one of the discussions that I thought that the show did really well, was through Jae-yi, it addressed the problem of being born with that much power and not having earned it. Well, one, not having earned it. Two, should one person have that much power anyway? And three, if you do find yourself having that much power, then you actually owe a debt to, your society to use that in a way that doesn't harm or endanger them, and to use it to benefit them. And like, she became a person who was able to sort of smack his head down and say, not like literally, but, she was able to make him look at his position from outside of himself. Because, when you grow up in privilege, you do take it all for granted. You're not even exposed to the rest of the world when you're living inside the palace. So he needed to be told a lot of things. And she was able to tell him that even though she herself was also privileged, but she had grown up in a way that she was able to see how privileged she was, and that made her understand that she had a duty and a responsibility to the people who weren't born with the privileges that she was born with. Like, if you have power, you have to use it.
But also, I like that they didn't just limit us to the perspective of the royals and their immediate surroundings. I like that the perspective switched to Jangaram and her brother escaping basically slave catchers. I honestly, these things had been referenced in other dramas, but I think this drama did a better job of it. The fact that you can't just run away when you've been sold into slavery. Like the state takes into account if you are at that household or a runaway. You get bounty hunters bringing you back. And also then the perspective shifts to the dispossessed people of that framed village. I keep forgetting its name. Byeokcheon, and how they were living, and I really like that they showed us the perspective of that couple, the struggle they were. That was far more interesting and nuanced to me than what the queen was doing in our palace.
And again, that presented like this situation of what happens when power betrays you. Like, what happens when the people in power betray, the contract. Like, they have a duty, but then they massacred this entire town.
Yeah.
And it was a really meaningful question, but unfortunately the answer didn't quite land. We keep coming back to.
Yeah.
But again, I was happy with the villagers getting their resolution at least.
So I was pretty happy with pretty much everybody's resolution, except now that you pointed out the queens, because what was that?
Yeah.
And by the way, the kings, the way they brought the kings arc to the end was also not quite satisfying.
He just died off screen.
Like there was, pretty much. I don't think he made things right with the crown prince. He had done too much wrong.
I kind of feel like maybe he was just broken by the end of it. But yeah, you're right. He wasn't able to confront his role in that injustice, and the show didn't really ask him to, which I think is a shortcoming. Like,
I agree.
He hadn't taken in the scale of the betrayal of, the king, because I guess the queen wasn't wrong in that she held the king ultimately responsible, but that was also kind of theoretical at a point, because if you held the king responsible, why are you punishing everyone else?
What was she doing to the king?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, her plan might have worked better if she had just focused them on the actual villains instead of just killing off random people on the side.
Maybe we don't know what happened in the novel. Maybe the novel was... Maybe that was the story.
Maybe. I actually want to go and find out what...
Yeah.
Maybe. So there is this one scene that stands out in my head that I just want to mention before we start wrapping up, and it is. Do you remember when, in the initial episodes, when the evil minister is confronting his brother-in-law, the one who was the governor of the. What was the name of the?
Byeokcheon.
Byeokcheon was the governor of Byeokcheon, who was the one who was the tyrant in Byeokcheon that the villagers wanted to complain about. And then, of course, he just started to beat the villagers to death. And then his brother-in-law arrived as reinforcement and then just killed, just mass murdered everybody and framed the villagers.
Just to protect that one family member.
And so the confrontation the two of them had. When he dragged him to the side and he was like, do you understand what I had to do to protect you? I really love that moment because I don't think we ever get to see
good.
Yeah, this moment of not even conflict, but self-awareness of the extremes you have gone to protect somebody in your family, and they are not even worth it. just because often we just get villains who just do villainy things and that's it. Like there is, as if they have no like levels of thought. Yeah, they're evil. This guy is still evil. But like what is his thinking? Like how does he perceive himself? He clearly sees himself as somebody who was forced to do this by his incompetent brother-in-law.
And he clearly doesn't see what he did as right. Like he recognizes how terrible it was. But then again, this character...
Or it may not be that he doesn't see it as right. He may see this as like a weakness that he now has, a target on his back that it wouldn't have existed if not for, it was like a strategic choice he made, but life would have been easier if he didn't have to make it. And now this is a weakness he's carrying constantly. So
the great thing about that particular scene was that it added some very welcome complexity to his villainy. But then they kind of ruined it by he just devolved into this cackling menace. And like every time he started laughing, I was just like, I can't. He would literally be cackling. Like, and you're just like, how? Okay, we get it. He's evil. Stop cackling. And I don't know if that's like the direction or, or just like, I mean, it must have been.
Also, directly related to that cackling persona that he turned into, towards the end where he has a confrontation with the queen and he barges into her room after realizing that this was her long game and he was a pawn and stuff. And then he's like, I'm going to tell everyone. She's like, no, I'm going to tell everyone. And he's like, no, you can't until the Grand Prince becomes the king. So you can't do anything while I can tell everyone. It was just so stupid. And then she comes out and goes like, I will kill you.
And then she's completely ineffectual.
And then tries to poke him with this tiny thing. Yeah. What was that?
Yeah. Okay, let's not end it that way. Okay. This was a good drama apart from, it was really
It was a good drama. It was a good drama where we got Park Hyung-shik as a crown prince. And
Jeon So-nee was amazing.
Jeon So-nee was amazing. We got proper brotherhood. Oh, so one aspect that I absolutely loved was how Jeon So-nee Jae-yi was constantly the object of jealousy for other friends in the crown prince's life. So the closer she got to the crown prince, the sergeant got jealous, his bodyguard got jealous. It was Taekang, it was great. The eunuchs were the only one who were like, yeah, okay.
Well, they were pretty pleased when she got picked out.
Oh, I love the head eunuch.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure. But like after that, the head eunuch was so sweet.
When she was I
mean, even before, the head eunuch was
the loyalty test.
You remember, like he gave her his socks. Yeah.
Okay, now we're just randomly naming scenes and it doesn't mean anything to anyone. But here's a question because we're nearly out of time. Like in the oeuvre of sort of tortured crown prince dramas, like, we're talking Love in the Moonlight, King's Affection, Red Sleeve, and probably a few others. Where do you think this stands? Like, how does it stand?
If you had watched the Bridgerton's Queen Charlotte, we would have put George up there in the tortured crown prince. He would. I think you would enjoy that.
I
drama,
tried watching it and I didn't enjoy it, so I gave it up.
But no, I really loved George's character in there. Okay, but yeah. So who stands out? Is that the question?
Well, how does it rank in the genre of tortured crown prince dramas? Even Hwarang would count here.
Yeah, no, I think Hwarang's crown prince still, is above Yi-hwan in my head.
Although in Hwarang, technically he's the king, so yeah.
I mean,
an unthroned king, I guess.
The hidden king. Yeah, it's just that his fight, his tussle with his mother was just so epic. Like it was in that, it was this grand narrative. It's like she was both protecting him and harming him. And it was so hard to...
Like, was she saving the throne for him or from him? A good question.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, I still think that was tortured Prince Max.
I mean, that was the drama that made me become a fan of him. I think that was the first drama I saw him in as well.
Yeah.
And he just killed it. But he did bring it. Like, he
did.
definitely brought
absolutely
it
did.
to the second half of this drama. His game
Yeah.
was, like, at max.
It was. I just think that he did his best in a script that gave him good friends around him, like the characters who were of his age, like his immediate group. He had great dynamic with them, but like the drama that comes from family. I don't know, a horrible family, a horrible royal family, just didn't quite happen in this one. Whereas if you ever get to watch The Red Sleeve, oh my God, like you just the torturing that happens in that drama.
I have to say, this show left me with a sort of an insatiable thirst for more like it. So I'm definitely going to check those out. And let's see how quickly I get through them. I'm stuck on My Perfect Stranger now, which is also everything I love. But yeah, let's leave it here, shall we?
Yeah, I just started it. Yeah. No, that's it. I just, because Saya was like, start My Perfect Stranger. I'm so obsessed with it.
It's so
I'm
good.
Like, okay, cool.
So good.
Let us. And I just started this afternoon. I was having my lunch. I thought that was going to be a 10 minutes break, but I went on to watch like, I think 30 minutes. And then I was like, I have to get up now.
At least it wasn't a 4-hour break.
Yeah, true. That has happened. I can't say it has not. But yeah. So
that's it.
That was it. Okay. So the listener who asked for our thoughts on the ending, here you have it. And we hope you enjoyed this drama. If you have thoughts on any of the scenes or character arcs or themes, let us know. You can find us
on Twitter at Dramas Overflow. You can find me at Not Now Saya.
You can find me at The Drama Notes. And you can find us on Instagram at dramasoverflowers_. You can email us at dramasoverflowers@gmail.com.
And you can find us on Facebook. Just search Dramas Over Flowers. And our website is dramasoverflowers.net, where you can find various drama analyses and posts, and keep an eye on it. We may be writing more soon. Oh, and the newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter.
Oh, yeah. Sign up for the newsletter. Anissa recently wrote an amazing review of Dinner Mates, which is a drama that I had watched, loved, and then completely forgotten about until she wrote the review. And then I relived all of the amazingly lovely moments. So I ended up rewatching the drama thanks to her review. So you will find the link to our newsletter in the show notes.
And finally, because we didn't say it at the beginning, let's say it at the end. Thank you to our patrons for all of your help and support. And this episode was brought to you by them.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone else for listening. And goodbye. That's it.
Bye guys.